July the 8th, 2025. Attendance has been taken, noting that Councillor Coleman is not here tonight. He has called in and said he might be in later, but he's not here now. The second thing on our agenda is the land acknowledgement. Councillor Oakley, you're going to do that for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we gather, we acknowledge that we meet on the lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Ottawandarock. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We recognize the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of this land. As a council, we have a shared responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and a commitment to the truth and reconciliation calls to action. We commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working in allyship.
Thanks, Councillor Oakley. The third thing on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda? Okay, noting that Section 4E of the Brant County Procedural Bylaw be suspended to allow for consideration of item 12.1 as it's not a matter under the Planning Act. And Councillor Miller, you have that for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and it's moved by myself, second by Councillor McAlpine, that the County of Brant Council agenda of July 28, 2025 be approved, and as you stated, Section 4E of the procedural bylaw be suspended to allow for consideration of item 12.1 as it is not a matter under the Planning Act.
Thank you. Any questions? Call the vote. All those in favor of the agenda? Opposed? Carried. Number 4 on the agenda is the declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone see any that are obvious? No? If you find some along the way, please let me be the first to know. Delegations, petitions, and presentations. We don't have any tonight at all, which takes us to number 6 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting, which was of June the 10th. Does anyone have any questions to the minutes of June the 10th? No? None? Seeing, we'll take a vote then on approving the minutes of June the 10th. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I guess there's probably no business arising from the minutes. Councillor Pierce?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just wasn't sure who moved and seconded that, but I'll move it. If
I believe it's going to be Councillor Bell.
Yeah, you're just so excited to get it done, Mr. Mayor. So, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the minutes of the County of Brant Council meeting of June 10th, 2025 be approved.
Perfect, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which takes us down to number 7, as I said, the business arising from those minutes. Seeing none, we'll go on to number 8, 8.1, which is consent items to be approved. We don't have any tonight. And 8.2, consent items to be received. We also don't have any of those tonight, which takes us to number 9, which is a public hearing under the Planning Act to receive information from the public. So what this is going to be a public meeting. So I will call the public meeting open. And when I do, you're going to have a chance after the presenter and the planner and the agent to speak. Anyone in the audience want to speak to 612 Burtch Road. And then when we're finished, I'll close the public meeting and we'll take it from there. So right now we have Logan, and you're going to take us through 612 Burtch Road.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Council and Mayor Bailey. This evening, I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1225 PB for 612 Burtch Road from the Angus Group on behalf of the owners Manuel and Deolinda Azevedo. This application is to be received for information at this time. Subject lands are located south of Burtch Road, west of Mount Pleasant Road, and east of Pleasant Ridge Road. Subject lands are rectangular in shape with a lot area of 29.2 hectares with a frontage of approximately 750 meters along Burtch Road. Surrounding area consists of agricultural land uses and low-density residential homes. Subject lands are designated as agriculture and natural heritage system within the County of Brant official plan and zoned as agricultural and natural heritage within the zoning bylaw 6116. The applicants are requesting to rezone the retained lands from agricultural to agricultural site-specific A9 to prohibit a dwelling as a permitted use in order to satisfy a condition of a future consent application. The proposed severed lands have a total lot area of 0.4 hectares and contain one single detached residential dwelling and a small garage and are serviced via private well and septic, which are to remain with the severed lands. The proposed retained lands have a lot area of 28.8 hectares and contain 4 agricultural structures. In addition to the A9 rezoning on the retained lands, the applicant is proposing a reduced setback of 3 meters, whereas 15 meters is required for the existing agricultural buildings, accommodating the proposed new lot configuration. The consent application is scheduled for July 17th Committee of Adjustment meeting. However, in an effort to efficiently progress this application due to timelines of the applicant and missing the August meeting, the proposed rezoning is being heard for information purposes tonight. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We can now hear from the agent, which is Rashika. Are you here for a presentation or just to answer questions?
I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you want to come up to the podium? At this point of the meeting, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the room that wants to speak to or against this application. You can come up to the podium if you want to speak to or against the application. I'll ask for the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to this application to or against? Seeing none, we'll close the public meeting and we'll take it to council. Are there any questions, council, to either the staff and or the agent on this proposal? Seeing none, I'd like to get a mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Chambers, Councillor Oakley, it's on the floor for discussion. Is there anything council wants to add to anything they've heard so far tonight? Okay, so I'm looking for someone to receive for information. That's okay? All those in favor to receive for information? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Rashika. Takes us to number 9.2, which is Ryan. Welcome back, Ryan. This is 73 West River Road. Again, I'll call the public meeting open, and we'll call on Ryan to present on behalf of planning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is my pleasure to be back in front of this committee. This application tonight we're dealing with is ZBA 925 and PS 125 RC, zoning bylaw amendments and draft plan of subdivision from MHBC Planning on behalf of West River Developments at 73 West River Road in Paris. The subject lands are located on the north side of West River Road, east of Chapman. Currently, there's a single detached dwelling that is occupied as a rental to be demolished in future. There's a frontage of approximately 192 meters on West River Road, a depth of 125 meters, and an area of approximately 2.4 hectares. Subject lands are currently designated as community corridor within the county official plan, as well as natural heritage system. The West River Road is designated in the OP as a residential collector road, so it does fit with the context of the community corridor designation, which permits a variety of developments such as low, mid, high-rise developments and mixed uses, institutional office uses. And to note, it is located within the urban settlement area of Paris, and as many are aware, there is a natural heritage feature on site. The intent of that designation is to identify and protect lands identified as environmentally significant, as well as woodlands, watercourses, and hazard lands. Currently, the subject lands are zoned special exception R158. Permitted uses include singles, semis, and towns. The proposed zoning amendment will allow for an increased width of the driveways as well as overall lot coverage. I think item of particular importance here to note is that the original application that we had received contemplated a rezoning to a residential multiple zone. This had come right around the same time that staff had brought forward the amendments to our residential zoning to permit 4 units as of right, which coincidentally permits now street fronting towns within the R1 zone. And I think the applicant can elaborate on this a little bit more in terms of their intent for this development, but I do think it's important just to get it out there and note that with that new update to our zoning bylaw, street fronting towns are permitted within the R1 zone. So the development proposal, and we'll just take a look here at, so there's a draft plan of subdivision, and normally when we look at a draft plan, it'll include quite a few blocks for development and quite a few residential lots. Purpose here is to establish a draft plan of subdivision in a legal framework to allow for the future part lot control application to create individual conveyable parcels within a condominium, not dissimilar to things that we've seen maybe on Cedar Street, those types of condominium developments. The draft plan is a legal framework that will allow for a future part lot control application, and that is, again, the creation of lots to be conveyed in the future. The ultimate intent is for this development to be a common elements condominium, and we'll note that would go through a site plan control application in future to deal with the more detailed design of the site. The draft plan does include, obviously, a large development block, as we'll call it, as well as a smaller park parcel that will be conveyed to the county, and requisite road widening. So the development proposal, at this time, we're still working with the developer. I'm working through some detailed design items here, but as it stands today, we're looking at a 71 townhouse unit development for a future condominium, public park, private street network, and visitor parking. And as noted, the draft plan will include 1 large development block, future park block, and road widening. So again, this is being presented to this committee tonight just for information purposes. We are working diligently with the developer, and there's some details to be worked out certainly before it comes back to this committee for a recommendation. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan's going to be available for questions after we hear from the agent, which is Trevor Hawkins is here. Bob Stewart's here.
This one looks like the cobblestone, 10 cobblestone. Due to the way the road is arranged.
There we go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and to present our proposal for 73 West River Road. My name is Bob Stewart, representing West River Developments, Inc., as well as Pinevest Homes. Here with me actually from Pinevest, partners Pete Shute and Henry Stolp. And as well, not Trevor, Jen Gaudette from MHBC, who's our planner on the file, who'll be giving a presentation. I just wanted to, before I pass it over to Jen, provide some history on the lands. I think some of you are familiar with this property. Originally, it was brought on as a 6-lot plan with private services. This was quite a few years ago. Through the process, the original owner had sold the property to a developer that was looking to bring in the plan, which was, I think, about 200 stacked town units to the property for the entirety of it. That's what kind of made it through the pre-con process with the county, where we got comments and worked through that. And we ended up working on this new proposal that ended up being the 71 2-story towns with the window road, as you see, off West River. And then, of course, keeping a good portion of the woodlot to the northeast corner, as well as the woods on the perimeter of the site. And as you'll see from the presentation, we're looking at also quite a few items for compensation planting, things like that, as we work through that with staff and our consultants. So with that, I will be here for questions after, but I'll pass it over to Jen for the presentation.
Bring it down a little bit, you're so tall. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Gaudette with MHBC. I'll try to be brief, as Ryan stole most of our thunder here. So as Ryan mentioned, the site is in East Paris on the north side of West River Road, which will be named Benjamin Road in the future. It is currently developed with a single detached dwelling, and there was a plantation established in the early 90s in the northeast corner of the site by a previous owner. And the teal that you're seeing there is the Paris Grand subdivision. As I mentioned a moment ago, there is a plantation on the property that is designated natural heritage right now. It's got black walnut, red oak, and basswood trees. And it's a little sparse, as you can see. It looks in the aerial like there's more than there is there, but you can see in the photos it is more sparse. The site is within the primary settlement area of Paris. It's within the built-up boundary, and it's currently designated community corridor and natural heritage system, which does permit townhouses. Currently zoned residential singles with a site-specific exception, and that exception is related to partial servicing, which isn't relevant to the proposed development. And as Ryan mentioned, there was recently an amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw, which does now permit townhouses in the R1 zone. Here's a rendered version of the plan. So it is 71 townhouse dwellings within a proposed common element condominium. The condominium application will follow. Each townhouse has their own private rear yard. There is the community aspect of it, which is that proposed park in the plantation area. Visitor parking is provided throughout the site, as you can see kind of in the central area there. And we do exceed the bylaw parking by 10 spaces. And there is compensation proposed in the form of tree plantings, mostly around the perimeter of the site. This is just a rendered plan, so these trees aren't accurate. They're just so you can see the backyards, but there will be quite a bit of greenery. There is a draft plan of subdivision proposed. As Ryan mentioned, it's just technical, so that future part lot control applications can come in to sever the townhouses. And the zoning bylaw amendment, which originally asked for the R1 zone, or RM1 zone, will now just be for site specifics for this parcel. And there is future site plan, condominium, and part lot control applications required to facilitate the proposal. This is the proposed draft plan. We don't need to go through the details, but there is a road widening shown on there to accommodate the future Benjamin Road improvements. Concept plan again. There were a number of studies that were done as part of the submission, including planning justification report from us, noise feasibility, functional servicing, stormwater management, archaeological assessments, transportation impact and parking study, as well as an environmental impact study, arborist report, and tree preservation plan.
Thank you. Before we open it up to the floor, we did have one person that did register and wanted to speak, Kay Ruska.
Okay.
I'm going to speak on behalf of Kay.
Okay. So when you come up, then if you could just give us your name and address.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you'll have 10 minutes. You're allowed 10 minutes. You don't even want to know what happens to you if you go over.
This one should be working.
Okay. Is this working? Yes. Okay. Sorry, I just have to get the right height. Okay. So my name is Laura Ruska, or Laura McKay is my married name, and I live at 81 West River Road.
Thank you.
I do have a lengthy kind of piece here. I was wondering if people would like copies of this. You
can leave copies at the back on the podium, and if you are going to go over 10 minutes,
I
just
won't.
let me know, and we can extend it if we have.
Okay, I'll try not to. Should I just leave them?
Just leave them with the clerk here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. I'm sorry, I'm kind of tall here. So,
The battery's dead in that mic. Do you mind if I switch it out, or can we just get rid of your mic?
It's kind of 17. Okay. Okay. So good evening. I'm here today on behalf of some concerned residents that live within the area of 73 West River Road. I have a few things to say after gathering information from residents in the area, reading the justification plan and the environmental impact study, reading the official plan, and taking into account my own experiences as a resident of Paris and a resident in that area of the subject lands. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. So as I said, my name is Laura McKay. I'm a resident at 81 West River Road. I hope to offer some insight as to why you should consider rejecting the proposal to rezone. To clarify, the intention by the developer to change the zoning is so that a 71-unit townhouse subdivision with 38 additional spots for parked cars can be built. Rezoning and building this subdivision would destroy a significant woodland that has been designated as part of the natural heritage system in the current official plan of the County of Brant. You will notice on the presentation you just saw that they referred to it as an enhanced woodland, when in fact it is a significant woodland. I'll go more into that later. It would also unnecessarily put a great deal of pressure on the already stressed infrastructure in the town of Paris, especially in the North End. And the development would negatively affect the flow of traffic in that area, traffic noise, safety, and character of our neighborhood. I'll expand a little bit more in a moment, but first I'd like to begin by raising a serious concern about the credibility of the environmental impact study by Natural Resource Solutions Incorporated, which has been used to justify removing the designation of significant from the woodland and the designation of natural heritage system on the subject lands in order to classify it as part of a community corridor. The designation of a community corridor will justify, take my paperclip off, will justify the removal of most of the trees on the property and allow for higher density subdivisions like the one being proposed. More than 50 years ago, a natural resource ministry provided seedlings to the previous owner to cover approximately 1.7 acres of the northeast corner of the subject land, with the stipulation that the resulting woodland could never be touched, not even to remove a dead tree or underbrush. At the end of March 2023, early in the morning, I was drawn to noise coming from 73 West River Road. I live very close to there. It was a large crew attacking the forest on the subject land with chainsaws, tractors, trucks, and skid steers. They worked quickly, and by that evening, all that was left was a section of sparse, large trees and a forest floor bereft of anything but black muck. If you guys will notice in the photos that were shown there earlier, and the comment that the floor is very sparse of that forest, all of that was removed on this day at the end of March 2023. They had annihilated every other species of plant life and at the same time destroyed the habitat and sanctuary of numerous species of mammal, bird, insect, amphibian, and reptile. It was basically an ecological disaster. I wondered how they could do this, knowing that the forest is a part of Brant's natural heritage system and that the previous owner of the property wasn't even allowed to remove a dead tree. This clearing happened at the end of March 2023, before nesting season. And surprisingly, the environmental impact study began evaluating the area on May 10th, 2023. You'll be able to see that if you look at the impact study, the dates, it's on page 10. It became clear to me once I started reading the justification report and the environmental impact study submitted by the developer, that the developer or somebody connected went into the woodland, cleared the forest prior to the assessment in an attempt to skew the environmental impact study. By removing the forest floor in advance, the developer effectively artificially reduced the ecological value of the woodland. This means they removed important plants, ground cover, and natural features that should have been there when the site was evaluated. This created a misleading baseline that downplays the ecosystem's significance and supports the narrative that this woodland is in fact not significant and can therefore be cleared and turned into a subdivision. Best practice guidelines for the environmental impact study make it clear that baseline conditions must reflect the undisturbed site, so that the study can accurately measure the ecological significance of the area. Any pre-study disturbance undermines the credibility of the process. We cannot take anything that was reported in the environmental impact study as fact. In the justification report summary on page 27, they ask that the county amend Schedules A and B to reflect the information provided by NRSI's environmental impact study in order to remove the woodlands designation as significant and to remove its natural heritage designation. We demand that you do not remove the designation of this woodland because of this invalid report and this sneaky, underhanded way that it was done. Our community deserves better than a process manipulated in favor of development at the expense of a thriving ecosystem. We urge you to question the environmental impact study's validity when you are making decisions regarding the subject lands. We also urge you to account for the developer's premature actions in your evaluation of this proposal. Yes, the plans show a small minimal parkland in the northeast corner. However, this doesn't account for 80% of the current forest. The justification report states that the subdivision will, in fact, add to the canopy of trees in Paris. But we wonder how destroying an already thriving canopy will add to the canopy and positively affect our neighborhood and its wildlife. I don't know what time I'm at right now. Okay. In addition, point 2.11 on page 3 to 5 of the official plan states very clearly what can and cannot be done in a natural heritage designation. To summarize, because of the key ecological features of the zone, development, intensification, and site alteration are generally prohibited in this designation to provide for the permanent conservation of these areas. A strict approach to restricting development and site alteration in the natural heritage system has been applied to provide for long-term conservation and enhancement of the system. So part of the county's goals, objectives, and actions help to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions and provide for the adaptation to the impacts of a changing climate, including increasing resiliency. This designation is supported by the provincially mapped natural heritage system for the growth plan. It is clear that using a manipulated environmental impact study to prove that a forest is not significant was a plan to have a designation removed so that development could occur on the property. The natural heritage system designation was standing in the way of development. Despite the carnage to the forest and removal of a significant carbon sink in the area, the woodland is still viable and will recover in time and should be allowed to stand at its present size. I'd now like to address our concerns with how this subdivision will impact the neighborhood and infrastructure of Paris. We understand the need for housing in our province and support the initiatives that have been put forward to make sure there's adequate housing for everyone. But housing development needs to be done in a way that makes sense. The proposal to rezone build a subdivision with this density in this area doesn't make sense. The subject lands are located in the north end of Paris. As someone living in the north end for 11 years, as many of you might know living in that end of Paris, I've experienced how it has become increasingly difficult to do simple things like drop children off at work and daycare, go to work. North Paris lacks the roads, bridges, and traffic infrastructure to accommodate another surge in population. How will more people in our community make getting around town easier? The property in question is on a side road at the edge of the settlement boundary of Paris, so on the outskirts of town, essentially. The homes across the street and beside are all residential single-family dwellings that have been established and been there for a long time. The official plan states that density and design should be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and the small-town charm of the county of Brant. Not only is the proposed density out of step with the neighborhood, but it poses many problems. Having a car in our neighborhood is a necessity as there's no infrastructure like sidewalks or bike lanes. There's no public transportation as well. People drive to get where they need to go. With parking for potentially 180 cars, what are the plans to accommodate this amount of traffic? The traffic study that was done was an inaccurate depiction of a subdivision that is, in reality, going to rely solely on driving to get anywhere. On the note of transportation, with this plan, what kind of plan is in place for school buses?
Can I just stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
Are you almost finished?
Almost
or do you
done.
do you want us to extend your time?
I probably need 3 more minutes.
We'll just keep going then. Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk faster. Okay. What's in plan for school buses? Where will children wait to be picked up? The road in question is dangerous. There's a blind curve just east of the property that is a safety concern. Children have been hit by vehicles walking home from school on the side of the road in front of the subject land. Actually, that was my child. People from the golf course subdivision walk without sidewalks on the too narrow road with their dogs and children. And where will garbage be picked up? Is it going to be dumped out on the street? The lanes in the subdivision are too narrow for a garbage truck. This neighborhood is not a thoroughfare. Yes, they've labeled some of it as a community corridor, but I don't know what it's connecting. The houses closest to this proposed subdivision and to the west will suffer the most with traffic increases, as there is really only one way out of the neighborhood. Watts Pond Road isn't an option. Brant's official plan has a goal of population growth to 59,000 by 2051. I've become aware that 7,700 units have been approved but not yet built in the county of Brant. These units will, in fact, meet or exceed the population growth target in the official plan for 2051. We're there. Why are we approving more homes without the infrastructure in place to support them? The final housing needs assessment report concluded that no new settlement land was needed. We've met our targets. To conclude, the proposal does not take into consideration the ecological footprint, the neighborhood, and the infrastructure of our community. It prioritizes developer profits over public good, environmental preservation, and neighborhood character. By approving this proposal, it would set a precedent in Paris that developers can degrade a site before the environmental assessment takes place to justify removing protections. This plan is also, its density is also out of step with the community and doesn't seem to have a plan for traffic or daily life. It would also add more stress to the already stressed infrastructure of Paris that doesn't seem to have a viable plan in place for population growth. And as we've learned, there's no reason why that many homes need to be built on a small lot at the edge of a settlement area when population targets have already been met. As a community, let's support building and development in a way that makes sense to our community and established neighborhoods. We, as the residents of the area around 73 West River Road, respectfully ask you to take our concerns seriously and reject this proposal in order to protect the community we've all worked so hard to build. Thank you very much for listening to that lengthy speech.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very well done. Okay, now we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. Anybody have anything you want to say to support or speak against this proposal? Has she said it all for all of you? Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask for the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak for or against this proposal, this recommendation? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Give us your name and your address, please, and then you have 10 minutes. And unless you're like the other lady, then you have 13 and a half minutes.
Alrighty, I wasn't really planning on coming up to speak, but my name is Nikki Promoli. So I live at 167 Paris Links Road, formerly Paris Links Road, now Bendemeer Road. So I am within the grips of the development right now. I am living through it. I know what it is like. It is a struggle. So I would like to ask a couple of questions, maybe of the council. Where are we at with regard to municipal wastewater? Does anybody know? Are we able to currently handle the level of wastewater that we are dealing with?
Okay, So right now, we shouldn't be asking questions to council.
Okay,
There's-
okay.
There's
That's
time
okay.
for that, though.
Okay,
We can
all
do
right.
that later. It's-
So I have heard that in order to continue at the pace that we're going at, we're going to need to make some adjustments with the wastewater treatment center that we have on Race Street. I've also heard that we may need to send it to Brantford or send it elsewhere because we currently can't do that. And yet, we have 7,700 homes that have already been approved. So I look at what we've dealt with already, and I see, okay, well, we've lost a couple of trees in my yard alone, but how many trees have we already lost at the Grand Estates? A lot. How many trees have been planted since the development has gone up? 0. So I look at my children's school, and I say, wow, another portable this year. What percent is the school at for population? It's at 123%, as well as the Catholic school across town. When, might I ask, without answering, are the new schools going to be built? It's just ridiculous. I take myself back to when we were going through the development proposals for the Grand Estates. And I think, okay, I remember a day when it was at 800 homes to be built. Well, no, that was too many. So they took it upon themselves to bring it back down to, I believe, 749. And yet here we are, looking at another 71 homes to be built on our road. I have sent my children out to get the bus through construction. How do you think it makes us feel as a community knowing that everybody is being put through this stress, right? So I ask myself, tap the brakes. Did that mean anything to anybody here? No. All right. Sorry about that, but it's just very, very disturbing to me that this is even considered at this point. Yes, put in the proposal. I hear you. You want to make some money. We all know that that is what the development is about. Let's say it like it is. Those homes will be built, they will be sold, they will profit to somebody. Will they benefit our community? Will they make our community thrive? I look at the crime. I'm reading the paper, and people are going around in town, and I'm not saying the population growth has caused the crime, but there is an odd correlation there. You can't even go into Rexall without having your wallet potentially stolen. We do not live in Paris to live in a community like that. Cars constantly being stolen. My car was stolen out of my driveway. It is craziness. So I ask that you consider not approving this for our community. We are there. We are done. Like Laura said, we are done. 7,700 homes. And yet the parking, where are we going to park? And what are we thinking here? That everyone in that subdivision is only going to have one car? They will not. I am now seeing along our road, our new stretch of road, paved nicely. I mean, it is paved nicely. I will give it that. Cars parked all along the street. It is a little bit concerning, to say the least. So I think to myself, remind ourselves, tap the brakes. Where are the brakes now? The trees. I would like my trees replaced. When will that happen, I wonder? The wastewater, the crime, the schools at capacity. Where are we headed? Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? I'll ask for the second time. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak to or against this proposal, this recommendation? And I'll ask for the third time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation application? Seeing none, I'll call the meeting closed. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendation to be put on the floor for discussion, please. Councillor Oakley and Councillor Pierce. It's now on the floor. Does council have any questions to either the planner or the applicant, or just questions in general about the application? Councillor Hauser first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question's for the applicant.
Yep. Mr. Stewart, do you want to come back up?
Thank you. Through the mayor, to the applicants. You touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to go back to it. I remember sitting here 5 or 6 years ago when Mr. Hubbard was asking for the opportunity for his property to be turned into six dwellings.
Yes.
And at the time, that seemed reasonable. And you talked earlier about how then he sold it to somebody else who was talking about 200. And I'm just wondering, can you talk a little bit further about what you know of that history?
that history.
And how we went from 6 houses to 200 to 71?
Yeah.
Please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, great question. Again, Pinevest at the time and West River Developments didn't really have an interest in the property, but understood and followed along what was happening. So we knew the 6 lots were going through, and I believe, I think it was, 2000. I'm not sure the year when the 6 lots were proposed. Staff actually recommended refusal on the 6 lots, knowing that the lands were within the urban boundary. They were serviceable once the services came from the along West Bendemeer into West River to have more density on that site. And through those discussions, the next proposal being the stacked towns, which I think ended up being around 200 units from that original redesign, was basically looking at the servicing capacity from that area with that expansion and looking at the official plan and trying to make something fit on that property. Now, from those discussions with staff and when we became involved, looked at the site overall and thought, you know, stack towns are an interesting design. They do require a lot of parking as well. So we looked at bringing that back to a more low-density approach. I know towns may not seem low-density, but they would be definitely in this corridor scenario. And that's kind of the evolution of the process of how we got to that 71 units based on discussions with the county and staff. And there's still some comments from staff that want more density. So we're trying to figure out what fits best from a market perspective as well as what fits in the community. And no, appreciate the comments here today. I mean, through the work with the EIS, we're happy to take that to staff and walk through in more detail. As well as some of the history. But that was kind of the evolution. The services are there. It's within the urban boundary. It's designated in the official plan. And again, as Ryan had alluded to, it's currently zoned for that use. So now it's working within our concept to try to make use of the land and create these 71 units. So,
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. Can you just give me an idea as to like when you guys got involved in this property?
Yeah, well, we were following along the process. As I mentioned, we knew the lots were happening. We knew staff refused, and somebody else came into the fold and purchased it from George. And then we came in through, I think it was the pre-con stage, when the 200 units were proposed and started working at something there. So again, I'm not sure of the exact date of the pre-con. I don't know if Ryan has it offhand, but it would have been, I think it was about a year ago when we did have the pre-con, maybe a little more. But again, happy to get those dates exactly for you.
Okay. So sometime in 2024 then, is that safe to say?
It could have been in late 23 as well.
Okay.
Again, I don't have the exact date, but happy to provide that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a comment.
Yep.
In regards to the population of the schools. Absolutely, we understand that's a huge issue. And it's not just at the north end, it's at the south end, it's all over the county. But just to reconfirm to those that may not know, we as a council have no say in the building of a school. We've been speaking to the Grand River, to the boards, both boards, Catholic Board, Public School Board, for years, letting them know what's coming to town, what's coming to the county, and we've been advised that they will dictate when the new schools are built. So I just wanted to just reconfirm in case you did not know that. We've been trying to get more schools. We're having 2 of them coming. Yes, we'd like to have 2 or 3, but unfortunately, we don't have the say in that. So I just want to make that point clear. And I'm not sure if I could, Mr. Mayor, but through you to the one delegation there, I'm trying to understand, they're saying to reject this. Are they saying to reject this because of the number of units, or are they saying to reject this just to reject it? I'm not sure if that can be answered or not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We'll come back to that. Councillor Miller, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions. Through to the applicant. Her staff could answer this, but there's going to be some upgrades to West River Road / Bendermere Road
Yeah, happy to.
before this is,
It's, through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, part of the development proposal and part of the pre-con and some comments from the county, they're looking at urbanizing the frontage of the property.
and that would include sidewalks?
Yeah, and that's what we're still in discussions, but again, county staff and ourselves will look at that. I think it's envisioned to be an extension of what was just created and bring the sidewalks up, and that's part of the road widening expansion as well.
Okay. Second question, can you explain to me how it would integrate with Grand Estates? This
Yeah.
isn't just a standalone, is there going to be?
It is somewhat standalone. We're working with the county, so a lot of the services obviously were built through the development of the subdivision around us. So there will be a bit of an extension to get to our proposed access in the site from a sanitary perspective, water perspective. Water main is existing. But yeah, working with that developer in the county on the stormwater, how we connect in with the pond. So there will be some integration there. But overall, as you'll see on the concept, we're really trying to create quite a buffer around the entirety of the plan. It's tough to see on the concept, but they're quite large setbacks to the rear yards on the perimeter. And the intent there is to create, save a lot of the existing trees along the perimeter, but also the compensation planting will go in there as well.
Okay.
And along the boulevard as needed.
So you've had discussions then with Grand Estates?
Yeah, we've had some calls with them. A lot of it was on early on as it relates to the sanitary pump station. But through the development discussions, the county had taken over that pump station. So a lot of the discussions are now directly with the county. So those comments are any upgrades that were above and beyond the subdivision for Grand Estates now are with the county. So any monetary contribution will be back to the county based on any tie-ins to that pump station. And then back to the traffic comment and the road upgrades, that'll be discussed as well with them, because obviously there's been some massive upgrades along with the connection at Silver Street with the future traffic light expansion there. And stormwater, we are doing a lot of low-impact development here, a lot of infiltration on site. So that's kind of allowed us to be more contained. But any sort of connections, we will have those discussions.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mayor, one of the questions was asked by one of the delegates that came and spoke against this, and I had the same question. As far as wastewater capacity, do we have the wastewater capacity to services?
I believe we do.
Through the mayor to Councilor Miller. So we, as noted, we are working on upgrades through our operations department to the wastewater treatment plant. And we do have growth tracking in place where we're monitoring the growth right now because we do have limitations to how much can happen until those upgrades take place, but there is opportunities for growth still to take place right now. Details, I will turn that over. If you have any detailed questions, I would ask that, turn it over to Dave for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, just to add, I guess I'll give some numbers as background. So in 2023, the average daily flow at the Paris Water Pollution Control Plant was 4,500 cubic meters. The current rated capacity is 7,500 cubic meters. So I guess to the delegates who commented about that there is future capacity concerns, but the county is planning for those concerns today. It's a long process. It's an expensive process. However, when these developments proceed, we will have planned for the upgrades. So, you know, there was the growth tracking that was completed in 2021, and that is what's formed, you know, the requirements for the Paris Water Pollution Control Plant upgrades.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff. Could staff comment on the comment that one of the delegates made about the environmental significance of the natural heritage system there? What do we as county think about it?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, the lands are still designated natural heritage, and we've been just in discussions with the landowner about their perceptions. The comments from the delegate, the one resident, was correct that our official plan doesn't let you damage a feature and then come in and do the assessment. We would go back to the original state it was, and they should be basing it on the assessment of how it was before they did any works to it. So we are in consultation with them. That's part of the stuff we're working on them with, about how that would impact their design and the development. So right now it's still part of the natural heritage feature. And if they needed to amend that, they would need to amend the official plan.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, the drawing on page 3 of Ryan's presentation shows a very large area of natural heritage. And typically when we've had plans brought forward to us before, development has really stopped outside of the natural heritage system. Why are we accepting or considering a proposal which eats into that natural heritage system?
To Councillor Bell, so anyone can make an application, and staff is going to recommend and review and make a recommendation to council. Doesn't mean we are accepting of it just because they've submitted the application. So that is still something that's under consideration amongst other items. So that's the purpose of the public meeting too, is to gain input. So there's no decision yet, and there's no recommendation from staff to council about how to proceed. So just because it's a proposal doesn't mean it's the end plan that's staff is going to recommend approval of.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I would just like to say, I remember before I was the mayor, driving down Rust Acres Road and seeing Peter Piavati's property at the top of Mile Hill stripped, and all the trees that laid there for such a long time. And you wondered how that could happen, because he was also part of a planting at the top of Mile Hill. I don't know if you know that or not, but from Peter's house, which is that sort of Austrian-looking house halfway up the hill that was designed to match his father's house, that was that was done by the liberal government, actually. They did a lot of plantings back then. Actually, Mr. Stewart's mother was in Parliament then. She was the minister. And we did that, they did that all through the county of Brant. There's all kinds of plantings. And to see Peter, again, Peter was one of those people who didn't chop down a tree or didn't move a tree when it fell, because there were rules when that was all done. And he used to be very proud of that. And to see them all laying there, I wasn't the mayor at the time, so I wondered why they were down. I wondered what had happened to Mile Hill. And then I found out through asking. But that was my first time that I ever saw something that I thought would never happen. And the only thing I can tell you about the 7,100 houses that are coming to the county of Brant is that the next ones are in my backyard, in St. George, 5,500 or something. And so I'm in the same situation as you are. You're looking out your front door and you're seeing what you bought, what you signed up for, and where you come from. I come from St. George and Glen Morris, and that's why you think it's all we can look like. And we're going to get in St. George, as you know, probably close to 6,000 houses in the next little while. And this is the calm before the storm. And that's what you people are seeing right now, is the calm before the storm. And there's no saying that the storm has to happen. And I think the fact that you filled the room tonight is at least something for the developer to take back as comment, and for us to hear as councillors and as the mayor, your concerns. Because, I mean, you're right, we have got the numbers to meet the maximum or the mandate of the province now already. We wouldn't have to build another house and still make it. But that doesn't mean the province is going to give us another number. They can always jack up the number if they see that they're getting somewhere. So that might happen, you never know. But I think it's good. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's not a lot of building going on right now, and that's a good thing. Everything's very quiet right now because things have changed. The market has changed, housing has changed, and the government, I think, is taking a sober second look of what they've asked for. And I'm not sure that they've asked for exactly what they thought they should be asking for. So I think there's a nice break right now, and that's what I see right now is a little bit of hope, because the 71 houses aren't coming in your backyard, they're coming in my front yard. And that's very scary. And then they're going to go to Burford, so they're going to go all over the county. But you've had enough change in Paris, I think, for the last little bit of time. I understand why you're nervous. I understand why you're asking these questions, because they're questions that should have simple answers, and they're not simple answers at all. So someone did ask for the delegation, to come back up and explain whether you didn't want this to happen just now or you just don't want it to happen ever. Do you want to come back up to the podium? Because I did ask for you to come back up for questions, because you did register register as a delegation. So you could just maybe answer, Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just as a point of order for the chamber, just to recognize the previous couple of delegations had some clapping, cheering, so on and so forth. Just to remind folks in the audience that as per the rules of decorum in our chamber, there's no clapping, jeering, any of that in response to a delegation in the positive or negative, just to remind folks going forward.
This isn't a football game, so you can't cheer and you can't hiss and you can't boo. And Councillor Oakley, thank you for telling us that it's not a football field and we can't do that. So don't do that again, because we'll have to throw you out or something. But you certainly do have time to respond to the councillor.
Yeah. Could you state again
Yeah.
what we were talking about rejecting? Is that kind of what
Right,
you were?
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, like, are you wanting to reject this for the number of units there? Like, hypothetically, if they would have come in and say, there's 30 units, would that, would you support that? Or is it, you don't want this period?
I think I initially am going to say that we reject anything that's going to touch that woodland. So anything that's going to kind of affect the growth there and the natural heritage system, that's the rejection. So the plan that was shown, definitely rejecting that. And also that number, that density on that property. So I don't think that we're rejecting anything that makes sense in terms of using that land in a way that isn't going to overpopulate our little neighborhood, our street, our community, where traffic isn't going to be, too intense for people moving around. So that's essentially what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
And initially I was here to reject the rezoning, but it looked like there was something how the rezoning, it doesn't matter anymore. Was I correct about that? That there was the R1. Because it was under my impression that the zoning that it's currently has, you're only supposed to have semis or private, like single dwellings. But what the planner was saying was that now you can include townhomes in that zoning. So that was confusing to me. So I'm not sure. So I'm rejecting anything that's going to touch that woodland, change the designation, and really affect the neighborhood in the way that it is right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Council, do you have any more questions to anyone, planner, delegation? No? So we have a staff recommendation in front of us. I'm going to ask the clerk. Can you read the recommendation, then we'll vote?
Through your worship, the recommendation is that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 9-25-RC and draft plan of subdivision application PS1-25-RC from MHBC Planning Agent on behalf of West River Developments Incorporated, owner of 73 West River Road, proposing to rezone the subject lands from R1-58 to a site-specific RM1 zone with a proposed park zoned OS1, and further proposing a plan of subdivision consisting of 71 townhouse units, a public park, a new private street network, and visitor parking be received as information, and any comments/submissions regarding this application be referred to staff for review.
So it's being accepted as information only for staff to review it. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is 9.3, which is 71 Woodsley Avenue. And Ryan, you've got this one too. Again, this is another public meeting. I'll call the public meeting open. And Ryan will present on behalf of the planners, and then we'll call on the applicant or the agent of the applicant to speak. And then we'll open it to the floor, and then we will speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This presentation is to deal with application ZBA 1025 and PS 225RC, the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for 71 Woodsley Avenue from Arcadis Professional Services on behalf of Pine Best Homes Incorporated. The subject lands are located on the north side of Woodsley Avenue, south of Hartley. They're currently vacant, having historically been used for agricultural production. Frontages of approximately 270 meters on both Woodsley and Hartley, and an area of 4.52 hectares. Subject lands are designated in the county official plan as a community node. The intent of that designation is to provide a destination for residents, workers, and visitors. Permitted uses include low, mid, and high-rise development.
Ryan, do you want to wait for just a second? Gary, when you're done with the batteries, can we just make sure that his presentation goes up? Yeah, you just take a minute there, Ryan, so we can see what you're talking about. Sorry about that, Gary. He'll just put the presentation up. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to start over?
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is to deal with applications ZBA 1025 and PS 225RC, zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for 71 Woodsley Avenue from Arcadis Professional Services on behalf of Pine Best Homes. The subject lands are located on the north side of Woodsley Avenue, south of Hartley. They're currently vacant, having historically been used for agricultural production. They have a frontage of approximately 270 meters on both Woodsley and Hartley. Total lot area is approximately 4.52 hectares or 11.16 acres. Subject lands are designated within the county's official plan as a community node. The intent of that designation is to provide a destination for residents, workers, and visitors with permitted uses, including low, mid, high-rise development for residential and mixed uses, as well as institutional, commercial, office, and community-type uses. The subject lands are currently zoned light industrial M2 within the county of Brant zoning bylaw. Permitted uses in that current zone would include automotive repair, recreational facilities, wholesaling, and warehousing. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands from light industrial M2 to a modified residential multiple RM2 zone, approximately, I think, 3 specific RM2 zones to suit the proposal. Not dissimilar to the application we just dealt with. There's a draft plan of subdivision being proposed. This one here features a number of blocks for residential development as well as mixed-use, high-rise development along the southerly portion of the lands. I want to stress again sort of the intent of this draft plan again is to establish that underlying technical framework for a future condominium application and part lot control applications to create future conveyable parcels. In addition, again, there's a proposed zoning bylaw amendment with site-specific provisions allowing for certain site-specific provisions related to The product being proposed by the developer allow for mixed-use buildings, as well as reduced minimum lot area and increased lot coverage for row house dwellings. In future, the county will require site plan control applications and a draft plan of condominium to finalize this application. But what we're dealing with right now, again, is the draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment. So the applicant's development proposal consists of 288 residential units with a mix of housing types. The proposal will entail 3 phases with up to 35 affordable housing units within the proposed 7-story mixed-use building. I would note that within the current official plan, there's this, the subject lands fall within a special policy area that does require affordable housing units and does require the developer to enter into an agreement with the county to ensure that those affordable units are provided for. The draft plan will include the required future development, residential development blocks, a park block, which isn't shown on this right now, but we are working with a developer to cite that park block to our community services staff's satisfaction. And then again, common element components for the future condominium. Again, this is just to be received for information purposes only tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Odette, are you here to speak on behalf of the age? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you are.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi again, Bob Stewart with Pinevest Homes Woodsley, Inc. Again, just a quick introduction, as well as some history on the file. As I know, most of you are probably familiar when we were back quite a few years ago during the official plan, the new official plan, and bringing these lands into a mixed-use designation. So we've been working at this one for quite some time, and I think some of you were even around in the original 2020 or 2012 area study, which looked at that whole Northwest Paris area, looking at the conversion and the housing types in the north end. So again, with the official plan formally being approved, we've been working away trying to develop a plan that checks all the boxes within that OP, including the affordable housing units. So again, part of that original delegation for that change was affordable housing to be included, and we think we've found a plan that works well for the area. So I'll pass it over to Odette to give the overview, and again, here for questions after the fact.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Odette Gomes. I'm a planner with Arcadis, and I'm here representing Pinevest Homes. Ryan did such a great job introducing the application, so I'm going to get through some of these slides pretty quickly just so that I'm not being too repetitive. But again, the subject lands are located at 71 Woodsley Avenue in the county of Brant. So the parcel of land provides for a very unique opportunity to develop a comprehensive, complete community that easily transitions and integrates into the existing neighborhood. The proposed development is the cumulative of numerous design scenarios. We've participated with the County of Brant official plan review, municipal and agency review, and also had 2 formal pre-submission consultation meetings, and we're having ongoing discussions with staff. So the result of this comprehensive consultation, it seeks to create 288 residential units on the currently vacant lands. The proposal consists of 90 traditional townhouse units, 48 back-to-back townhouses, and 2 mixed-use buildings containing a total of 150 units, 35 of which are committed for affordable housing. 1,120 square meters of ground floor commercial is also proposed within those 2 mixed-use buildings. The proposal also includes 3 phases of development. So the proposal seeks to be advanced through a draft plan of subdivision. I won't go through that in too much more detail, as Ryan did a great job explaining to you how the draft plan would work. So phase one of this proposal includes 90 row townhouses. Parking is provided in both the garages as well as in front of the units. Parking for the townhouses is included at a rate of 2 spaces per unit, and we also have additional parking spaces for visitors. In the phase one, we're also proposing 48 back-to-back townhouses. These townhouses will also include 2 parking spaces per unit, as well as the required visitor spaces. Phase 2 and 3, these propose 2 mixed-use buildings, 1 building in each phase, containing, again, ground floor commercial, residential units above in 7-story building. Again, 35 of the units in the phase 2 building are committed for affordable housing. 18 spaces are proposed for the 35 affordable housing units. We're proposing 1 space per unit for the market units in the mixed-use building. As well, there's 60 parking spaces proposed for visitors and for the commercial. There's also an opportunity to utilize 64 on-street parking spaces for the commercial in this development. So the County of Brant, again, as stated by Ryan, again, won't go into too much detail on this, but it designates the subject lands as community node and a site-specific area, PS-4. Okay, so the development of this site, it seeks to contribute to the county objectives of intensifying the site in a way that is supportive of our broader policy objectives, including creating and connecting to public spaces and supporting active transportation methods. The proposal engages in a higher standard of design by providing a mix of uses in various forms that contribute to a complete community objective. Part of the street-facing mixed-use residential buildings will be included and dedicated for the residents and for the community, the surrounding communities. The ground floor commercial then allows for complementing the uses and supports, again, the adjacent residential dwellings. Parking in the community nodes areas follows various strategies to encourage the intensification and strategic design of these areas to meet broader goals. As part of the rezoning amendment, a request to reduce the number of parking spaces is made to better fit and maximize the site's potential. All of these details play a role in the gradual and strategic development of the subject lands and the community node as a whole. Site-specific policy area PS-4 requires a minimum of 35 affordable housing units to be provided as part of the future development. Once again, the property owners have committed to providing these 35 units in their phase 2. So the existing zoning for the site is currently M2 light industrial zone. The zoning bylaw does not permit the proposed development. So in order to advance the proposal, a request to amend the County of Brant zoning bylaw from M2 to RM2 with site specifics is being requested. Reduced parking is being requested for the mixed-use development, as well as permitting the mixed use in the RM2 as a special use. In order to facilitate the inclusion of the proposed townhouses, we are asking for reductions to minimum lot area, exterior side yard, and minimum lot coverage. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment supports the intent of the County of Brant's official plan. So based on the review that we've done, all the consultation that we've had to date, all the supporting studies, a number of supporting studies have been prepared that support this application. We ask that you accept this application for information tonight. We believe that it represents good planning, and both Bob and I are here to answer any of your questions or provide you any further clarification tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Because this is a public meeting, I'm going to open it up now to the floor. If anyone in the building wants to speak for or against the proposal, come on up. Give us your name and your address, please, and you have 10 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Molten Metallurgy, Inc. is the owner of 80 Woodsley Ave and 20 Lee Ave, which is at the corner of Woodsley Ave and Lee Ave. And so it's directly across the street from this proposal. My name is Andrew Guiducci, and with my father, Ted Guiducci, we own and operate the manufacturing companies on these industrial lands that I referenced above. In fact, a new building that we just built on 80 Woodsley Ave is zoned M2 and was finished only 9 months ago in September of 2024. This is a 25,000 square foot advanced industrial manufacturing facility. And the facility on 20 Lee Ave has been on the location since 1975, with the present ownership and operation taking effect in 1986. Over the past 5 years, we've seen high-density residential development around us in the North End, with very little industrial or commercial buildings being incorporated. The original plans shown to us for 71 Woodsley Ave, that was on the official sites, showed this as light industrial and commercial development. This would have provided a much-needed buffer and business opportunities for warehousing and logistics centers, which are currently in high demand. Paris, as we all know, is a strategic location between the 403 and the 401. There's a significant need for warehousing and logistics. There's a significant need for small industry opportunities. And you're taking this away by zoning something that currently is zoned M2 and changing it into residential. The recent closures of employers in the area of North End, Pinty's Delicious Foods, Nuts for You, and a number of other businesses have closed due to residential encroachment. Look at Pinty's, that was a massive employer in the area, closed. We know because we were able to hire a lot of the people from Pinty's. They walked over to us because there's not a lot of businesses left in the area of the North End. We need more businesses. We need the right type of businesses in the North End, but you can't do that if you don't have the lands. And you need to have the proper buffer zones. A reinvestment into the businesses, most importantly, the employers of the area, would help with the community. The previous individual spoke much about the community involvement. It's kind of tough to have a community if there's no employers. People have to work. You need to have places for them to work. The proposed rezoning would eliminate potential businesses that qualify under the existing M2. By rezoning to RM2 residential, it would be detrimental to the existing employers in the area, as the encroachment of residential with no buffer zones to industrial is going to lead to complaints. These complaints can include but not limited to noise, truck traffic, odor, visual cosmetics, and visual appeal. You can say all you want that old people will know what they're moving into, but the fact is this is proposed to be right across the street. There's no buffer or anything for the existing businesses that have been in this town for a very long time. In our experience, all MOE, which is Ministry of Environment, complaints from residential requires immediate investigations, as the rights of the individual have first call over the rights of a business. Even when the complaints are found to be false or baseless, the disruption, stress, and aggravation to the industries are detrimental. We have operated our business for over 40 years and invested heavily back into the operation over the past 8 years, modernizing and expanding. We currently have over 30 employees, 30 families that rely on us, and we have plans to double this in the next 10 years. But we have grave concerns right now over the viability of our business. As I said, 9 months ago, actually, who knows when, I don't know when this exact proposal came in, but 9 months ago when our new building got built, across the street was M2. Now it's residential. If we had known this, the heavy investment, large investment that we just made back into the town of Paris, we would have seriously rethought that and said, is it worth it for us to build this expansion with future expansions planned in this part of Paris? If I had known that this would take place, we would have taken a completely different approach. Now, at almost the last second, it seems, all of a sudden it's starting to change and switch. That's not right. Why remove industrial land when there is a high demand for it and a need for it in the area? That's essentially the question I'm asking right now. When we were building our building on 80 Woodsley Ave, I was approached no less than 11 times by various individuals who pleaded with us to rent out our space to them because they were looking for warehousing space. They were looking, there's machine shops. There is so many small business opportunities for businesses that need 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. It's not the businesses that need 50,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. They need small, affordable units right now for small businesses to start, but there is none. This land, which is zoned M2, can accommodate that. Just has to be planned in and done properly. So as a result of this, we are in opposition and would ask that you do not rezone this to residential. Leave it, please, as M2 and reinvest back into businesses. If at the end of the day, there must be a requirement for more residential units, then we're asking at the very minimum, please leave a buffer zone on the property. On the Hartley side where there is residential already, yes, they want to build affordable housing and some residential on that side, that makes some sense. But don't right up until the very, very edge of all the industries in the north end. You need to have a buffer zone. It can't just be right up against it. Lastly, we would say that if this council decides to proceed with this, we would ask that one thing that would help, please carry out a full environmental impact study in cooperation with the MOE and the existing industries or their delegates. We've spoken to the industries in the area, our neighbors. They are all opposed to this. They are all fearful of the same thing. So we would ask to identify the potential factors that could impact the welfare of the existing industries. And after this study is completed, then a detailed plan to address the concerns and factors of that study be taken into consideration and implementation. For example, is a tree hedge, berm, a sound wall, fencing, or other requirements with proper signage and due diligence required? This is what the businesses are concerned of right now. We don't need more businesses closing in Paris. I don't think that's your objective, is to shut down more businesses, especially businesses that are growing and expanding like our business, and for us to take our business and move it elsewhere, because there'll be no one left in town for employment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to come up and speak to or against this application? I'll ask for the second time. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to come up and speak to or against this application? And I'll ask for a third time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to come up and speak to or against this application? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Sure you can. You just made it, though.
It's not going to be long.
No, you can. You've got 10 minutes, and it's just
Well, I think I'll be less than 10 minutes.
Name and your address, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Susan. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have concerns about the condos on Woodley, the townhouses and the condos, and that I'm concerned because I walk around that area, and I think that land should not be zoned for residential. I really don't. It seems like everything will be just crammed in, and we're talking about, what, a 7-story condo? Like on Woodsley? That kind of would be an eyesore, and I think it should stay as industrial. And I'm also concerned about the traffic around that area, especially on Woodsley and Hartley. And I love Paris, but I don't like what I see going on. And all of us here would like to work together, but there has to be some compromise. And I'm also concerned about the wildlife because we're taking too much land and they're going into people's yards and everything else because they're losing their home. And we do need affordable housing, but it needs to be located in a better area. And I would like to see more manufactories or businesses come back. Woodsley would be the perfect, not a residential. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, and I will ask again for the third time, is there anyone in the room that would like to come and speak to or against this application? Seeing none, I'll call the meeting closed. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder to put the staff recommendation on the floor. Councillor Bell and Councillor Oakley. Now we're going to have discussion. Questions? Councillor Howes, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a few questions for the applicant and his planner.
Okay. Do you want them to come up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Through the mayor, some interesting discussion tonight, and I appreciated Andrew and his father bringing a perspective we don't necessarily hear.
For sure.
Very often. And it's always great to hear that there is demand for small industrial and warehousing in our town. That's a good thing. So one of my questions for you is, if this project is to advance to further stages, do you see an opportunity for creating a buffer? Because Councillor Oakley, myself, and other Paris councillors, we're the ones who get the phone calls, and we've had the phone calls related to light pollution and people's backyards smelling like chicken fingers, and many other conflicts that come up in the unique area of North Paris, where you've got industry that's been there for decades, and houses that have been there for decades, and some of those things that come along. So that's one of my questions. One of my more specific questions, and you know, you are checking some of the boxes that we like to hear. We certainly like to hear about affordable housing. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the rental side of things versus the condo side of things, and the kind of the structure, because this municipal, like the second lady who spoke, said we need affordable housing, it just needs to be somewhere else. And the trick is finding that somewhere else. And nobody seems to want it in their backyard. And, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about your plans for the rental side of things so that it remains affordable. And then specifically, I wanted to ask about parking, because your planner talked about phase 1 and then phase 2 and phase 3. In phase 1, you're talking about townhouses and you're counting 2 parking spaces per unit. My question is one of those spaces inside the garage? And then does the same apply to back-to-back towns? Because we know people's garages get filled with junk and then they don't have enough parking. And then one of the comments from your planner was related to the future phases and asking for a reduction in the required amount of parking spaces. And that part of the solution was that people would be able to park on the street. And I see that as problematic in that part of Paris. So I wanted to throw that at you too.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I may ask you to repeat one of them as I get through these. But in terms of the first question on the location in the industry and all the background studies we've done, we're still working through the comments with the county on that, whether it be noise, odor, and again, back to the original area study in 2012, which contemplated this change for all of the lands in the north area, with substantial growth of industrial down by the highway. It was always kind of envisioned then, and of course in 2021, 22, coming through the official plan update process, these lands were designated as mixed use, and basically now just trying to bring that into rezone it in order to adhere to that designation. And this is where we get into the detail of making sure, we want to be good neighbors. We want to make sure everybody can operate effectively. And through some discussions with Andrew earlier in the year, They've done an incredible job already. I know they've probably had some complaints over the years, but already updating their system. So happy to keep those discussions moving and work with them on it. In terms of the buffer, the way we've kind of master planned that, the community to have the density up front, it's a bit of a buffer in itself for the units. And then as we look to the noise attenuation, things like that, we can work that into the buildings. There is a potential opportunity for some additional almost flip where your parking's up front, but from talking with the planners, from an urban design perspective, that's really not too common these days. And with the commercial up front, back to the parking along the road, if there's a way to work with staff to allow in that right of way for some parking in front of that commercial, all that stuff's on the table as we get through detailed design. From that perspective, happy to work with our neighbors and staff to understand those requirements from the reports we have provided to date and anything more we need to look into. So I'm happy to have that discussion. I'll jump to affordable housing. So with that piece, we've been working for a number of years now on the site and trying to understand what the best fit is. We had some stacked towns as examples, but really the cost to go up was difficult the last few years. But after speaking with Stubbies, local Stubbies, on their fast track program and what they've been able to do in a number of areas, it's really provided an opportunity for us here to build these buildings cost effectively, and they build a very good building and provide these types of units. And it really aligns well with the housing need assessment that you guys have just completed. And hopefully this 35 number that we're able to provide will put a huge, it's a huge jump from what you have today. So again, we'll continue to work with staff on that as we design these units. And ultimately, I know it is phase two, but that location being able to service it on its own, we'll work through the planning process on if they're part of the overall condo or standalone severances that could maybe go ahead around the same time as the other developments. So we want to stay as tight as possible on timeline if this does proceed. But that buffer area, happy to discuss some opportunities with staff and the neighbors to try to make it as best as possible for everybody. Last question.
The other questions were related to, through the mayor, to counting the parking spaces for the townhouses, and was one of the 2 spaces per townhouse, counting the garage?
Yes.
And then about the on-street parking related to phase 2 and phase 3.
Yes, no, thank you. And through your mayor, yeah, the garages would count as a parking space, sized appropriately as per zoning, and we'll work through that as well and provide visitor parking. So ultimately, if you think of the plan outside of the 2 density blocks, I think we're actually over the parking requirements based on the standards. And as we get to that density and with the affordable, depending on the unit count structure, again, happy to have that discussion with staff on and council on the current numbers of the parking standards. They are considerably high as it relates to neighboring communities, but also understanding we're not there in terms of a transit system yet. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg, but we want to work together in order to provide a nice mix of units. And just on that, there would be potential for bachelor apartments to single family, 1 plus den, 2 bedrooms. So that's kind of the scale we're looking at for these buildings. And really just that will change the parking depending on the number of units. So we're trying to find that healthy balance. And again, we'll be having discussions with staff and the on-street, if we can really do something there that help really formalize that streetscape with some parallel parking even along the boulevard, because the sidewalk is there as well. We'll definitely work with the county on that and hopefully achieve some additional parking spaces there. But that said, we will come back with hopefully some closer parking numbers to the required standards.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, my primary question was answered as you were answering Councillor Howe's question there in regards to the timing of the affordable housing units. I'm happy to hear that Though it's in the phase two, the idea is to have that proceed as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to then instead make a comment in regards to some of the delegations on affordable housing. And as Councillor Howes mentioned, I think we've heard just about everywhere, we need affordable housing, but not near me though. And eventually it has to go somewhere. And just to comment on this development, this is largely, I think, encapsulating everything that we've asked for in our official plan in what we want in a proposed subdivision. So just wanted to comment on that as the affordable housing, mixed use, everything we're asking for.
Thank you. Councillor Garneau, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, my questions are to planning staff. When we deal with proposals for residential development in agricultural areas, the concept of the minimum distance separation comes into play. I'm wondering if there's a similar concept as it relates to industrial areas, specifically if a version of what's presented in front of us today were to go ahead, how would that constrain the existing and neighboring industrial properties in future? Would there be things they could do today that they wouldn't be allowed to do down the road? And with that in mind, is there any order of precedent as far as how land should be used, either in our official plan or provincial policy statements that would offer us some guidance? Because I can see that there's some really interesting questions ahead of us in this file. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I could speak to that. And the applicant had provided in their planning justification report an analysis of the D6 guidelines, and those are it's not an apples to apples comparison to MDS, but a D6 is published by the Ministry of Environment to provide, they're guidelines. They're not quite as binding as MDS, but they're guidelines for separation and buffering between sensitive land uses and what we would call more volatile land uses, such as manufacturing in this instance. I'd invite the applicant to speak to this if appropriate, but their planning rationale did speak to the D6 guidelines and the appropriate separation in this instance from surrounding industrial uses. There's a bit of a parallel to be drawn, a comparison here to be made that there is existing sensitive land uses within the immediate area and not just the development we're dealing with here today. And so not dissimilar to MDS analysis where we look at what exists and what's existing around and any conflicts that might exist to sensitive land uses, which per the guidelines would include even the soccer field, for example, across the street. That's a sensitive land use. So we do take that into consideration in our planning analysis, noting that it is not, I want to be careful with my verbiage here, but it's not binding as MDS would be. It's more of a guideline. And I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I misplaced the second question. If that could be repeated, thank you.
Absolutely, through you. I was inquiring whether there's any order precedent as far as how land should be used in either our official plan or provincial policy statement that would provide direction as far as considering this proposed rezoning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, precedent is a difficult topic to address in planning because everything is analyzed on its own merit. I'd be happy to provide examples in my analysis in my future report. I've been with the county for coming up on 10 years now, and as long as I've worked here, these types of conflicts within the industrial residential interface in North Paris have been ongoing, and so this is not necessarily a unique situation, but it's again, there's been some very valid points raised, and I can speak to that in my report in the future.
Councilor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up, if I may. So I understand this to be less black and white as if the MDS example. So would it be fair to say then as future commercial industrial proposals came through in the neighborhood that it would be much more of a case by case rather than a clear-cut example as far as what they may or may not be able to do?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I guess, yeah, for that example, that's fair. When we're looking at MDS, for example, we're dealing with nutrient units, and that's sort of a black and white question here. The D6 guidelines make distinctions between types of uses and their own categories as to where they fall in the volatility of each use. So, yeah, that's a fair statement. There is a bit more nuance here, and again, the guidelines provide for, I think the terminology is suggested separation and buffering. It's not necessarily binding.
Councilor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Bob. Actually, no, if I may go first to staff. I think we have a dilemma between the official plan, which says that this property is zoned as is designated as a community node. And when you read into what the permitted uses are, it does not include industrial. So we would have a bit of a problem. I guess we'd need an official plan amendment to remake it possible to use it for industrial. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell. So the official plan is the overall guiding document. So that is the one that should direct the zoning. So right now there is a conflict, as you've identified. So the intent is that the zoning should come into compliance with the official plan. So that is the natural progression of things. The next step is the zoning should match the official plan, which means we shouldn't be bringing in industrial uses. We should be bringing in uses as per the official plan. So yes, if council wanted to change this back to industrial, we'd actually have to amend the official plan and revise that. But the goal here is council's direction has been not industrial. We're going to go to the community node scenario where we're looking at in commercial with residential mixes. And that's why you're getting that taller building, commercial on the main floor, and seeing some mix taking place on this site with higher density closer, which usually acts as a bit of a buffer. And they don't have the outdoor space as much because then you move further away, the outdoor amenity spaces, windows, and single families is a bit further away. So that apartment with commercial is generally a buffer that you would find in many locations to industrial between transitioning towards lower density residential.
Yeah, thank you. So a question to Bob, if I may then, Mr. Mayor. Bob, when you brought your proposal when we were discussing the official plan, you convinced us that this was a good idea to make this residential with, I think you bought it, I won't say you bought it, you convinced us with the idea that there would be an affordable housing part to it. What was your thinking at that time? And I can't remember in terms of the overall development of that site. I don't recall 288 dwellings.
Yeah, no, we had concepts for a lot of low density and just evolved into townhomes and then just utilizing the entirety of the site. And when we looked at the different types of housing options we could provide, we originally had quite a few singles along Hartley Avenue. And again, through discussions with staff, it's a lot of driveways. So we revamped that again with a window road to bring them off. We had quite a few stacked towns as well on the property originally and scaled that back to the towns you see today and back-to-backs, which is consistent with what you see just north of the site. So really, we're just trying to go from the existing residential as two-story towns into the stacked towns, then into the building. So, I mean, the two mixed-use buildings do carry quite a few units. And that's, again, I know parking sensitive there as well as height and the use. So really, it's evolved into a complete plan that we've worked on, for quite some time. And that was always the intent was to adhere to the official plan from what we wanted to see there based on the original area study that was quite a few years ago now, with always the intent for that lands to be converted to a mixed-use type development.
Yeah, but again, trying to make it very simple, how many dwellings did you have in mind when you brought that proposal to the official planning discussions?
We didn't really have anything set in stone yet, to be honest. We had some original, I think the plan showed single family along Hartley, and then everything else was just a mixed-use block to the south. And so we weren't into the detail yet. The first step really was to get an understanding of, is this viable? Can we make it work? And basically look for that conversion, and then here we are now getting into the detailed design and looking at the new policies of the OP and really what fits within that node category. And that's really been the vision for us since the plan 23, 21, 22, and then, of course, approved last year. So that's kind of been the guiding principle for us, but always the intent was to have good density within that. And if you picture the site, I know it kind of looks like it's at the end right now, but I think most of you know there's obviously a lot more development to happen to the west. So it really is a nice central point for some commercial along Woodsley, as well as providing the trail networks. And although a condo, there will be working with county staff on how we get people through that, whether it's in addition to the park, as well as walking corridors all the way through the plan to get to the rest of the amenities in the Northwest Paris area.
Yeah. One final question, if I may. Your company is often developing condominium complexes. Can you just share why you go that route rather than just a normal subdivision?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a great question. And I've done a lot of larger greenfield subdivisions in the past. A lot of the stuff we've done recently is condo. And again, it just, from a unit count perspective, and really anything you do from a stacked town to these 6-7-story buildings will be condominium, standard condos. And we find too, I mean, the road network with the 20-meter right-of-way, it eats up a lot of the land. The county, going to condo, you do have the condo fees. There's some additional items there, but the county's done some great work at allowing garbage collection, things like that within the condos that have really helped make condos more viable and more attractive to new home buyers as well. So we did look at cutting up the site maybe to some freehold up front on Hartley, as I mentioned, but with all the driveways, it was best to contain the site. So you'll see a condo for the low rise and potentially a different condo type being a standard condo for the 6-story on the site. So I'm going to rely on Odette for that process with staff, but there'll be some navigating of the different types of condo processes in this one.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If everybody's finished with questions, if I could have a quick comment? Okay. I just want to circle back to the delegation that was up there, Andrew, and correct me if I misheard him, but I believe he said when we were talking about industrial and stuff like that, he had said, speaking of Pinty's, closed due to encroachment of residential. That is not a true statement. Pinty's closed because they were doing a restructuring of their business and they were consolidating plants. Part of it went to Oakville and part of it went back to Quebec to where their main plant is. So Pinty's was there for many, many, many years with the houses that were around it. There wasn't any additional houses built around the direct location of Pinty's. So I just want to clarify there that we don't want to see any sort of businesses close through an encroachment of residential or for any reason, but no, that Pinty's was not closed due to encroachment of residential. That was a restructuring of that business, and it went Oakville and Quebec.
Mr. Miller.
Just across the street from Domite or Molten Metallurgy, there's a bunch of soccer fields, and during my tenure as a soccer coach, we played there a few times, and you would play in the evenings, and sometimes you would play there, and the smell was quite strong for Molten Metallurgy. So I can see, if this project goes ahead, I can see a few residents getting maybe some of that smell periodically. So how do we protect Molten Metallurgy from complaints? Because I see a lot of conflict arising.
Through the mayor to Councilor Miller, you can't protect someone from complaints necessarily because there could be complaints about anything. The proposal is when they go through this, as Ryan identified, they have to review it from the D6 guidelines of potential impacts of the type of business that are there. If they're going less than those distances, then you're looking at reviewing noise, dust, and odor implications and how can they address them so that these residences shouldn't be impacted by that industry across nearby. So you're trying to balance how the two will function together so that they're not impacting each other. So that's part of the analysis that has to take place to try and prevent those types of complaints from coming forward, so that we've solved it essentially through the noise, dust, and odor scenarios have been reviewed and addressed.
I just, like I say, I see a lot of conflict, that's all. So, okay, thank you.
Any other comments, concerns? Okay, we have a recommendation in front of us, a staff recommendation in front of us. Do you want the clerk to read it? Or are you confident in what you're voting on? Confident on what you're voting on? Yeah. To receive for information, yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to number 9.4. And the entrance of Councillor Coleman at 9.4. And this is Brandon, and he's going to speak to an official plan amendment.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm here this evening to present what we're calling Phase 1 of our municipally initiated official plan amendment. There was some information presented on this, and it was introduced last month, so we're just moving forward with this project as it was explained. So this is a public information meeting for this particular phase of the project. It's a follow-up to our report last month, and we have divided this project into 3 categories that we're phasing it as. So one of them is this technical alignment. That's the one we're seeing this evening.
I think I better stop you here. I didn't call it a public meeting. And I didn't
Yeah,
call it
please.
open, so it is a public meeting, and I have called it open, so continue. Sorry about that.
No problem. All right, just to continue with that, we're dividing it into 3 categories. So this first category that you're seeing before you this evening is our technical alignment and clarification category. You'll see some more policies come forward after the summer, and that will be with respect to kind of policy refinements and some more implementation support of our official plan. And then a third phase, which will be more related to strategic direction and growth management. And the idea is that we've divided those into 3 phases, and it's kind of based on the potential impact of the changes. So these ones are kind of our low-hanging fruits. We don't expect a lot of potential impacts, and then as we go through those different phases, there'll be some more needed discussion on those particular topics. So as part of this project, we're providing some examples of what we are looking to update. And the idea here is that it's just going to be accepted for information. This is a starting point to introduce some of these changes to the public and to council. And there will be more information provided through public engagement, through surveys online. There's already a project page that's been created on Engage Grant, and we'll be moving forward with that. So the first part of this exercise is our PPS 2024 alignment. So we need to make some changes specifically to some outdated references and definitions. So those will be updated to align with our new provincial planning statement. Some examples, so there's some new glossary terms. We have some adjustments to be made to the agricultural system, some items related to energy storage, and then generally removing growth plan language, specifically from housing and natural heritage policy areas. We are proposing to move forward with some changes to public consultation and delegated authority. As some background on this piece, in 2022, the county had updated some of the rules in the delegated authority bylaw to allow staff delegated authority for certain minor applications. So A9 zonings are an example, and temporary use extensions. But to fully streamline that process and to conform with the Planning Act, we need to have policies in our official plan that recognize this. So we did it a bit backwards, and we're kind of doing it, going backwards to those steps to update the official plan and move forward that way. And again, in late 2024, when we presented the OP implementation report, we had recommended creating a new engagement framework, and the purpose of that is to make this planning process more efficient, make the input or opportunities for input more meaningful, and that was based on public feedback and discussions with council throughout the official plan process. So what we're proposing here is moving forward with an updated framework. We're proposing to classify our applications in 3 categories: minor, intermediate, and major. And this will be dependent on their complexity and their potential impact on the public. So we've provided these as a starting point, again, for discussion. We'll be going out with a survey to the public specifically on this piece, and we'll look at talking to them about the classifications and some of the other potential changes we're looking at here. So based on the classification, sorry, I'll just go back to this, the varying level of engagement would be required both before and after an application is submitted. And applicants would be required to justify how they've addressed those public consultation requirements as part of their application process. So we've done a bit of a comparison of the current process with the draft kind of possible alternatives that we're discussing. We are looking at a new system that would tailor things to review timelines and public notice requirements, again, based on application complexity. So where there's no studies or reports required for something, it's more technical in nature and is moving through that process. We would reduce the timeline review for that. There wouldn't be as large circulation radius for it, and the commenting period for that would be reduced internally as well. So really, that's just to streamline kind of that technical piece of the process. But you'll see as something moves into intermediate or even the major, we're opting to go, in the case of major, beyond the requirements of the Planning Act. So extending the radius for those potential circulations and extending the commenting period for those types of applications. With respect to the public meetings, minor applications would not necessarily require a public meeting. We're looking at the opportunity to not require it for intermediate, but to require it for major. And there would be the potential to have the opportunity, if there's discussion or contest towards the application, people aren't agreeing with it, it could be bumped into the major category, and then that would require that council approval, rather than coming forward to not having a public meeting. And tied to that is the decision-making. So we've offered some timelines here with the minor and intermediate categories, looking at director decisions, and the major category, again, staying with council for decision-making. The idea is that we would post the notice of decision within 24 hours of the decision, posted on the website, and we would have a dedicated page on the website for applications. That would include all of the notices, that would include all of the decisions. And again, this is being proposed for discussion purposes, and we're happy to answer questions about that as well, but I'll just move through some of these other proposed changes pretty quickly. So one of them is related to mobile home communities. We have a framework in our official plan that does support the mobile home communities to be year-round, and we're just looking at tweaking the definition specifically for the communities and for the dwellings that would be permitted within them. And the idea with that is that it just ensures a consistent interpretation in the application of the policies, while also giving us the flexibility to consider how these communities can positively address our housing needs. Some general changes related to corporate direction. So this is specific to two plans that were adopted after the changes were made in the official plan. One of them being the Climate Action Plan, and the other being the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategy. So we're looking at reviewing and refining some of the policies within the protecting what we value and how we green categories, and then with respect to cultural heritage conservation, a specific section. And that specific piece will go and have some discussion with our Heritage Committee. Another component of the proposed changes are related to home-based businesses and home industries. So I'll note that we've had kind of a successful pilot project with our zoning permissions that we put into place in 2021. So what we're doing again is kind of using this as a feedback loop, and we're creating a policy framework based on that. It's focusing on minimizing potential negative impacts. But what it will do is support compatible economic activity across the county and look at how that applies in both urban and rural settings. Our proposed housing needs and targets, this came out of the housing needs assessment, and we're proposing to quite quickly put them into the official plan. We recognize the importance of them, and you'll see here, these are the same targets that were discussed and approved through that plan, as we had discussed and approved last month. And on the housing note as well, there's a change that's been made provincially to the definition of affordable housing. So we're just making sure that that change is reflected in our plan. And the reason for that is that it will be important for eligibility for funding or exemptions in the future to make sure that that provincial standard is reflected in the plan as a minimum. And again, it would be consistent with the findings of our housing needs assessment. We are looking at our agricultural consent policies and specifically to clarify rules for the surplus farm dwellings and boundary adjustments, minor boundary adjustments. We've had some preliminary directions that were presented to our Agricultural Advisory Committee already, and they had specifically expressed concerns with the continued land division in agricultural areas, but also with the need to support flexibility for farmers with respect to the housing and farming operations and seeing the importance of allowing those surplus farm dwelling severances. So what we are proposing to do with respect to the surplus farm dwellings is to only allow the severances to occur when the farmland can be merged with a neighboring farm and where that farm already has a house. So the aim with that would be to balance the housing flexibility with the agricultural land protection, and we wouldn't be creating land that doesn't permit housing on it, and it supports kind of smaller farm operations that already exist. And with respect to the minor boundary adjustments, we're just looking at having some specific criteria in there for folks that are looking at doing that, so that there is a line in the sand with respect to how boundaries can move or where they can move in the prime agricultural area. And that's in line with our objectives to protect fragmentation of properties in that area. And we had some discussion with respect to the county's natural heritage system this evening already. So there will be some updates specifically on this, and they're related to refinements to remove the growth plan, the growth plan references, and to reflect current PPS knowledge and language. And so some of those, it does propose reducing some of the vegetation buffers in areas outside of the settlement areas, and that's being done to balance with permissions for agriculture, which is already permitted to happen in those buffer areas. But it will also then be consistent with the buffers that already exist in our settlement areas. It's worth noting that wetlands and watercourses still require a 30-meter buffer, whereas the woodlands would require that 10-meter buffer. And there still will be requirements for the environmental impact studies to happen, and that can determine if there's a larger or smaller buffer that may be appropriate. And again, if there are changes required to the designation in the official plan for the natural heritage system, it would be required to go through an official plan amendment. I just wanted to share this slide as well for the benefit of folks who may be watching. There will be plenty of ways to provide some feedback on this project through the summer, and as we present more stages of it. But there's some contact information there and the address to the Engage Brant project page as well. And so the recommendation this evening is just for information and to forward any submissions or staff, any submissions or comments to staff for review. And I'm happy to answer any questions or listen to any discussion. Thank you.
First of all, Brand, it was an amazing report, a lot of information. Because it is an open meeting, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the room that would like to speak to any of the alterations that Brandon's suggesting for the adjustment for the amendment of the official plan. I'll ask for the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to the amendment of the official plan presented by Brandon tonight? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to the amendment of the official plan as presented in this report? Seeing none, I'll declare this meeting closed, and I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor. Councillor Pierce and Councillor Coleman. It's on the floor, Council. Councillor Kyle and then Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brandon. Brandon, I just have a quick question about the public consultation and the delegated authority. So I like that you've got it broken down into sort of the minor, intermediate, and major applications. But just kind of thinking about some of the minor variances that we've seen come through that seem to be a little bit more major in nature, I'm wondering what criteria you'll be using to determine whether something is minor, intermediate, or major. Because with the way this looks, council would only see the major applications, but we might be hearing from residents concerned about stuff happening in the minor and the intermediate.
Through the mayor, so just 2 points on that, I suppose. So there will be criteria developed and included as part of the policies, and that's some of the feedback we'd like from the public. With respect to that, I think some of it will be with regards to the intricacies of the studies that would be required, kind of the technicality of that. If there's more studies required, we recognize that there's probably more involved with the application. The locations of the applications themselves, so if it's in a settlement area where there's more people around it, that may come into play with respect to something being maybe outside of the settlement and there's no neighbors around. So there's lots of kind of criteria we're looking to explore that way. And I'd also just like to note that there will be the opportunity potentially to bump some of this information up to council. We're looking at having a tool like that. So what we would do is circulate council on the application submissions that come in, all of them. You would be aware of anything that's come in, regardless if it's minor, intermediate, or major. And there would be that opportunity then at a meeting to bring it forward and request that it be bumped up or request that more information could come forward. So we still would be trying to maintain that transparency in the public setting, but the idea would be that behind the scenes it can potentially streamline the application process.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had two questions, and Councillor Kyle just hit on one of them because it's been a pet peeve of mine for the longest time, what's classified as a minor variance. And I'll drop the mic of Committee of Adjustments. I'll do that again. Some of the things come out there and it's supposed to be a minor adjustment and you kind of shake your head at it. So I appreciate the fact that there's gonna you're going to be adding criteria to what is and what isn't, so it's spelled out, and that's perfect. I appreciate that. And yeah, as the mayor said, you know, great report, and there's a lot of things that still to come on this, I think. But I think this is a fantastic first start. I like everything in it. One point I am going to make, though, and again, I've spoken of this before, and it's circulation radius, and it speaks here of actually potentially reducing the circulation radius. That's the only part, Brandon, that I disagree with. It's one of those, you know, you got the biggest one here for a major of 240 meters, and I understand it's a little bit more work for you guys and stuff like that, but again, as been said around here, we're the ones that hear it, right? You know, nobody told me, sure, there has to be, you can't tell everybody, I get it, but I think we're kind of setting ourselves up here in a sense that, well, how come this one is this distance and this one is this distance? I think if we just took the you know, whether it's 120 or 240 and just have it solid across the board, regardless of what it is, I think that would, of course, as I say, you're not going to appease everybody, but I think that, to me, we're doing our due diligence by going to the max for every one of the circulations. But again, thanks for the report, and thanks, Councillor Kyle, for hitting that first question for me.
Anyone else? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brandon. On mobile home communities, you and I had a quick chat about this a little while ago. Are we amending our OP to encourage mobile home communities? Because I see many articles on small homes, tiny homes. They're exactly the kind of dimensionally that what we're looking for in many cases. Are we being encouraging enough in what we're doing in modifying or amending our official plan?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, I would say this is probably the first step towards that. So what we're focusing on right now is just kind of consistency rather than, I guess, encouraging, so to speak. But with respect to the framework we do have in the official plan right now, it is quite forward-thinking, and not a lot of municipalities have been able to put together policies that support those types of communities. There's a lot of question about the servicing aspect of the mobile home communities, especially in the rural areas. And that's something we're still internally kind of dealing with. And I think until we've sorted that out, in those areas specifically, we'll be supporting the existing facilities and not necessarily encouraging new ones. But that's not to say that within settlement area boundaries on land, maybe that isn't appropriate for larger subdivisions or single detached houses. This may be an option for kind of these modular, mobile, smaller dwelling units. And we are considering that as part of the housing needs assessment. It was considered in that. And we had that discussion as well, just kind of about that being a potential easy solution. So it's on the radar, but this is kind of a step in that direction.
Yeah, thank you. I just make the observation that in my nearly 7 years on council, nobody's come forward with a proposal to develop a mobile home community. I've had lots of developers wanting to do condominiums and subdivisions. I just feel like encouragement is where I would like to see us move a little.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Garneau, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we okay with comments?
Sure.
Questions? Okay. I think I want to thank Brandon for the report and for laying things out as effectively as he has, because I think this effectively communicates as well to residents and the public who don't deal in planning language on a regular basis, what's being considered. And I don't really see these as housekeeping so much as some substantive changes that are moving us in the right direction. Specifically with regards to the notice, and I want to build on what Councillor Pierce said, that in some cases we are increasing the radius, which is a step in the right direction, especially within the urban communities. But I wonder whether it bears reflection in a rural community, because in many cases 240 meters wouldn't even get me to some of my neighbors, so there might only be a couple of properties notified if I were to do something myself. So perhaps staff can take back to consider whether there would be an opportunity there to create some criteria that related to, I guess, the community makeup, and that influences notice. I'm also really encouraged to see that we are formalizing the home-based industries and businesses. I think that's a positive step forward that gives us a framework in time to point to that enables that economic development, especially as we're seeing the pressures for commercial land and the costs to be prohibitive to a lot of small businesses. But I think the other thing it does is it will empower the economies in our more rural communities. And one of the things I hear from our firefighters is that daytime availability is a challenge in the outer lying areas. But if we can get some jobs in the outer lying areas, then hopefully that will also help with recruitment. And then lastly, with regards to mobile homes, I also picked up on that as Councillor Bell did, and I happen to live not far from one that is not technically the county, but is surrounded by the county, and it's a wonderful, thriving seniors community that allows folks who are, for the most part, seasonally in Canada and seasonally elsewhere, but it's a really good example of a place that works, and I think often there's a perception that a mobile home park is kind of run down and sad, but it's actually a very thriving community. So I think if we can figure out a way to make that work a little more, it's going to create some more accessible ownership opportunities. So thank you. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to comment, and following up on Councillor Pierce and Councillor Garneau about the notices. Yeah, I think that I would go with a larger for all. Minor, major, and whatever else. I don't think it should make much difference. The big problem is, and I'm sorry I missed the earlier one on the application tonight, was on Burtch Road. Now, I went to look at that the other day, and I had to go through there. And the signs are there, but they're flopping in the wind. And you cannot see those signs or read the damn things at all when you're doing supposedly the speed limit. And if you're doing slower than the speed limit, you're going to get rear-ended. The signs need to be, they're a much more improvement from they were 20 years ago when I got elected here. There used to be a little thing like this. They're getting better. But I think if you look to our neighbors and that's sitting in the middle of us, those signs are fairly big, and you notice it. And I just don't see those signs that are not big enough yet for when you're going by, because I've had people ask me about it, what's the application for? And I says, I don't know, I'll have to go and read it myself. So I think that needs to be improved yet to make better communications with the residents.
I'm sure Brandon will take that back. Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to follow up to comment on the notice aspect. One, I would agree with Councillor Garneau, and perhaps we need some sort of density metric in order to determine the radius. As in a rural area, 240 meters is not going to get you very far in terms of hitting other neighbors. However, contrary to my other colleagues, I actually do like the idea of having the different thresholds for what degree of notice we send out, because I do think there's a substantive difference between a single property being rezoned and a subdivision and the type of notice we need to give out. So I do think it's appropriate to consider different thresholds, especially if we're considering, as my colleagues are perhaps suggesting, that 240 meters is what we should do for everything. I think those larger applications should have some more emphasis and differentiation in terms of the notice and what we're doing for it.
Thank you. Are there any, Councillor Miller?
Just one opinion and one question. I'm not a fan of mobile homes, and I've probably spent the most time working on them on council. Just trying to bring them up into compliance has been a real pain in the you-know-what. And a lot of them are isolated out in the rural areas, and the only way you can expand those is if you eat into prime agriculture, and transportation's an issue and all that. So, and the other ones are in wet floodplain. So not a big fan of them. I don't know if they can be done properly. Maybe they can, but the ones I've seen, I think, Brandon, you know the headache that they've created. Just a question I have about the vegetation buffers. You said it's still 30 meters if it's a wetland, 10 meters if it's a woodland. Does that 10 meters, does that align with the conservation authorities? Because I don't want people asking, well, is that a county designated woodland, or is that a conservation authority designated woodland? Is it the same for both, the 10 meters?
Through the mayor. So with respect to woodlands, the Conservation Authority doesn't have authority over them anymore. So what the Conservation Authority focuses on is hazards. So the only thing that they may have authority on that overlaps with our natural heritage system are the wetlands themselves. And that's from a hazard aspect. So because the growth plan adjustments were made, the natural heritage system with respect to woodlands, that falls under our jurisdiction as a municipality completely.
Okay, so just to follow up, so if it's considered hazardous from their perspective, we would go back to 30, it would stay at 30 meters.
That's correct. That's where their commentary would come into play, and that likely would only apply to the wetlands and not necessarily to woodlands, unless there's an overlap with a woodland on a wetland, that kind of thing.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions to the report, Councillor Chambers?
Just a couple comments. First of all, with regard to the signs, I don't have a problem driving by and reading. What makes me mad is when you drive by after the application has been heard and dealt with, the signs are still there. Up to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 months afterward, the signs are still there. Some are placed nicely as they were, but most are in the ditch, in the fields, and it's just should not happen that way. And I can give you examples all across the county where there are still signs that are up or in the ditch long after the application has been heard. So I don't know what we're notifying people of after the fact, but they need to be removed after the application has been heard. And that is something that we're very lax on. So that's the signs. Mobile homes, communities, I agree with Councillor Miller. They should be on service land, not out in the country. You don't establish a hamlet or a little town in an agricultural area because it's not compatible with the agricultural area. It is compatible with residential areas. So put them in Glen Morris or Paris, actually I meant to say St. George or Paris serviced areas, but don't stick them out in the middle of Ward 4 or Ward 5 or Ward 2. The other thing is a question specifically with regard to, which would be a change in policy, which would be, I think, a dramatic change, and that's with the surplus farm dwellings. You're suggesting that applications like we had tonight would not happen, if I understand your direction here with they only can be created by merging the properties and basically no new lots without dwellings. In the last 10 years or whenever that policy has changed, there have been dozens of examples where farmers have purchased land and consolidated with their farming operation, and the house is left as a standalone house. And we zone them so that they can't build residences. Farmers like to farm, they don't like to be landlords. And that's an issue that you'll have to deal with if you pursue that avenue. And you'll have areas, you'll have residences in the rural areas that are falling down because they won't rent them because they don't want to deal with it. They're farmers, not landlords. So hopefully that can be rethought. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Is there anything else anyone would like to? Councillor Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment with respect to Councillor Chambers' comments about the surplus farm dwellings. I agree there could be some more thought put into it, but by and large, I do actually support that one because I think what we're seeing now is a lot of undersized agricultural parcels, and there's not an option. So if down the road someone has one of their kids they want to set up to farm, and they buy them one of those farm lots, they can't put a house on it. So I do like the idea, if there's two homes on the property, sure, sever off one as long as one stays. But I also understand that farmers don't necessarily want to be landlords, so there might need to be some thought put around that. But I do, in principle, agree with that change.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Garneau and then Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to weigh in on this one as the newest farmer who did not grow up farming but chose to farm. And one of the things that's coming out in some of the trade magazines now is how difficult it is to become a farmer if you aren't already one. And in particular, the smaller parcels of land are very difficult to finance because it's also very difficult to mount a business case to have them be economically productive to get that funding. So without the residents there to anchor it, it does create a lot more challenges. So while I agree that I think there has to be some more discussion here, I do struggle when each time we set a house off of a farm property, because what we've done down the road is eliminated a whole subsection of prospective buyers, I think, that largely see the land in future going to much bigger farming operations rather than perhaps in some cases keeping farming as local as it could be. I think we want to make sure that we're keeping doors open rather than closing them. And I don't have the answers, but there's a lot of commentary coming out in some of the trade magazines now about succession planning and farming and entry into that. So perhaps there could be some more conversation, including with those who are either operating in different ways in the ag space than perhaps we're maybe used to seeing around the table. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to make a comment, since the mobile home piece has been commented on quite a bit, I would lean more in the direction of Councillor Miller and Councillor Chambers with sort of not wanting to see that being sort of a permanent direction for us to be going. I know Councillor Bell made the reference to comparing it to sort of the tiny home communities that are popping up in places, but I think there's a very definitive difference between a mobile home and a planned to building code tiny home. In addition to that, we had some comments earlier today on one of our applications, or one of the applications we received as information in regards to protecting the environment, agricultural conversion, things like that. And I would think that though folks, especially on social media, have liked the aesthetic of tiny homes, the mobile homes, in terms of building this little kitschy community, in terms of land usage, it's not very effective for what you're getting. It's a lot of land for not a lot of property, as opposed to something like building up. And I think if our goals here are to not see urban boundary expansions, to not convert a bunch of agricultural land, not have the province consider things like removing greenbelt, whatever, I think us pushing in the direction of encouraging further development of these tiny homes, mobile home communities would be the wrong direction for us to take, because it's very land expensive for the amount of housing we get.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns before we vote? Noting that we're only voting to accept as information and take our comments back through Brandon to make any adjustments he thinks he could bring back to us that makes us a little bit more satisfied. That's what we're voting on. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Brandon. It was a great report. Takes us to number 10, public hearing under the Planning Act to consider staff recommendation, and it's all about 24 Elm Street. And Lauren, you have that. Thank you for staying with us, Lauren. Oh, I have to declare this is also a public meeting, and I declare it open and begin.
Thank you. I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 2924LG for 24 Elm Street. Staff are recommending approval of this application.
Are you still on probation?
The subject lands are located north of William Street, east of Elm Street, and west of the Grand River within the geographic township of Paris. These subject lands are considered an existing lot of record with a unique configuration. The lot has no frontage along Elm Street and is accessible by way of Elm Lane. And the lot has an area of approximately 1,578.27 square meters. The subject lands contain one existing dwelling and two accessory structures, a shed and a detached garage, which will be relocated to facilitate construction of the future addition. The surrounding area consists of residential land uses to the north, east, south, and the Grand River to the west. The subject lands are serviced by municipal water and sewer. Subject lands are designated as community nodes within the County of Brant official plan and located within the urban settlement area of Paris. They are zoned as special policy area, residential singles and semis within the zoning bylaw 6116. The zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2924LG proposes the following amendments to the zoning bylaw: to permit a residential addition on an existing lot of record with a 0-meter frontage, current access by way of Elm Lane, to permit a reduced street setback of 2.57 meters from Elm Lane, whereas 6 meters is required, to recognize the existing interior side yard setback of 0.6 meters, whereas 1.2 meters is required, to recognize the existing rear setback of 0.76 meters, whereas 6 meters is required, and to permit an addition greater than 50% of the ground floor area of an existing residential building within a special policy area, subject to obtaining a permit from the GRCA, which demonstrates that the new habitable floor space is constructed no lower than the existing habitable floor space and flood-proof to the existing floor and/or opening elevation where feasible. All other provisions of the bylaw apply. No comments were received as part of the public circulation. For the reasons outlined in my report, it is my professional recommendation that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 2924LG be approved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is the agent for the Horseful's here? Yeah, do you want to come up and speak, or are you here to answer questions? I said, are you here to speak with a presentation, or just? Sure, come on up. Come on up.
Mayor Bailey, members of Brant County Council. First of all, I'd just like to thank staff for their report on this application and their assistance throughout the process of bringing this application forward. They've been a great help. I won't talk about the location that's been presented. The property is very unusual. It's an older property, very close to downtown. There's no frontage on a public road. It's on a public lane that provides access. It is residential. As many properties in that area, it doesn't quite conform to the existing regulations in the zoning bylaw. So this application deals with all those areas that were deficient and accommodates the addition, which would be part of the house. They're not building a new unit. The new addition will be accessed through the existing house. It's really an expansion of that house to accommodate the needs of that family. It's a growing family, and they just need more space. The existing house is small. So the applicant is dealing with the Grand River Conservation Authority to make sure that the habitable area of the addition is above the required floodplain level. And indications are that we have received that that is being met. We've dealt with the development engineering requirements in terms of drainage on the site. We've done an archaeological investigation of the property that was required because of proximity to the river. There's been a tree preservation plan prepared, and there won't be, no trees are planned to be removed as part of this project. So it's really in addition to a house, and probably because of the lot requirements that you would normally not get this kind of application before you, but because of the lot, it does need a rezoning. And that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone, because it is a public hearing, is there anyone in the public that wants to come up and speak to or against this application? Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? One more time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation? Seeing none, we'll call the meeting closed. And I'm looking for a motion for oh my God. I'm looking for someone to put it on the floor and second it. Councillor Miller, Councillor House. Questions? Does everyone remember this application? It's an application of convenience, but I think it's passed all the criteria. Councillor House.
Thank you. More of a comment than a question, Mr. Mayor, if that's right. I think the applicant deserves full support on this just for how well the family has sat through 2.5 hours of learning about planning. So off we go.
My only disappointment in this application is I missed the tuxedo on the little guy there. Councillor Kyle.
Yeah, along the same comments as Councillor House through you, I do recall their original presentation, and the young folks did an excellent job presenting, so I'm happy to support it.
Yeah, that's great. Any other comments? It's in front of us. We are voting to give them what they need, and ready to vote. All those in favor? Opposed? There'll be no more accidents at the Horsfall family. Thank you. I guess that takes us to 10.2, is that right? See ya. That was half the room. For this one? Okay, the next thing on our agenda is 10.2, and it's Logan, and the agent is on the line, so after Logan's done presenting, we'll go to the agent who's online. So Logan, it's all about 252 and 428 West River Road.
Thank you, Council. Mayor Bailey. This is an extension of temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 825 LK, located at 428 West River Road from Ava Barnett of King and Benton on behalf of the owner, Steve Schrest. Subject lands have a total lot area of 33.2 hectares with approximately 650 meters of frontage along West River Road. Currently, the lands contain 2 single detached dwellings and 3 accessory structures. The surrounding area consists of single detached residential lots to the north, south, and west, agricultural and natural heritage zones to the north, south, east, and west. The subject lands are designated agriculture and natural heritage system within the County of Brant official plan and zoned to agricultural and natural heritage and temporary zoning T100. The application proposes an extension of temporary use zoning bylaw to permit a second dwelling on the lands for a period of 2 years in order to provide additional time for the evaluation of the farmhouse while allowing occupancy of the constructed dwelling and find a permanent solution to conserve the historic home on the site, on the property. Temporary zoning application ZBA 3222 BK was previously approved on the same portion of the property to permit a second dwelling for the same reasons in evaluating the farmhouse to find a permanent solution. I would like to note that Heritage Committee was pleased to hear that the owners and staff are working together to find a solution to preserve the farmhouse. To date, no comments have been received as part of the public circulation. It's my professional opinion that the request for the extension of temporary use zoning bylaw is appropriate and represents good planning, and therefore it is my recommendation that the application ZBA 825 LK be approved for the outlines listed in the report, for the reasons outlined in the report. Sorry. Thank you.
She's unmuted, but there's no sound being picked up, so. Oh, there she is. Nope. Hello? Okay, what we'll do is we'll get a mover and a seconder to get on the floor. Councillor Miller and Councillor Coleman. And, oh, there you are. Hello. Oh, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Can you check your microphone? Try again.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. We can really hear you now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. Step back from the microphone.
Turn it down.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Do you have a presentation tonight, or are you just here to answer questions?
I do not have a presentation. I am available to answer questions if anyone arise.
Okay, thank you. If you can just stay on the line then just for a minute. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to this application? Is there anyone left in the room? Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to this application? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing none, we'll call the meeting closed. And I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. I just did that. Okay, so it's on the floor. Are there any questions to this application from council? Any concerns? Any questions for the lady on the screen? No? Okay, you know what you're voting for? Yep, we don't need it repeated. Okay, well. Okay, all those in favor to support the recommendation? Opposed? Noted. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. We're finished now. We just voted.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for hanging in there for us. The next thing on the agenda is committee reports. We don't have any. 12.1 is going to be Mark Eby. Are you just here for questions? Okay, so it's for the stop sign at Keg Lane and Brant Oxford Road. The reason it's coming tonight is because it's a shared deal with Oxford, and it needed to be heard tonight. It's not really a planning thing, but it's an important thing. So, are there any questions, Councillor Pierce or Councillor House? Going to put it on the floor?
Hey.
Councillor Kyle is going to second it. What are we doing?
Sure, I'll put it on the floor.
Okay.
And I do have a question.
Yep. It's on the floor. Councillor Kyle seconded it.
Okay, great.
Now
So-
you can ask a
All right,
question.
thank you. Through you, my question to, just because we're going to get asked, and I don't think I saw it in my reading of the report. What's the anticipated timeline as of now for when the lights will happen? Like this is, the three-way stop's temporary, right?
Yes, it is.
And we're still aiming to have lights there.
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor House, the intent right now is to put the four-way stop in. The consultant that has done all the work isn't really sure that that lights will necessarily work better than the always stop, based on their synchro analysis and the things that they do. So I think we're gonna do some more, have them look at some of the movements and things, but we believe sometime later in the summer or first part of the fall, we'll likely put the lights in, because when construction is done downtown for the winter and traffic flows through downtown as normal, that allowing the unimpeded flow of traffic north-south on Brant Oxford is the best thing forward. And lights will allow that to happen. So then it would just be on a call system if somebody is at Keg Lane. So they're still coming. We want to do a bit more analysis to figure out exactly what the best timing is and what needs to happen. But doing that with the four-way stop there is actually better than not.
Okay, thanks.
Pierce and then Councillor Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, something is definitely better than nothing, because it's getting pretty crazy out there. That's fine for Keg Lane. What about Bishopsgate and Powerline?
So through the chair, it's being looked at as well. And currently, we haven't heard anything back that it's not working well enough most of the time. So they're still going through and looking at analysis, and they're going to do further analysis on that to determine what is the best way forward. And it could be an always stop, because we know in a couple of years with the reconstruction of Powerline that we intend to do something permanent at that intersection as well.
Okay. So I guess my only comment is the fact that, you know, we're talking potentially putting lights out there fall time when the construction is done. So I don't know, like you say, I guess you're still trying to understand now whether lights are best or stop sign is best. What do we do if we approve this tonight and Oxford doesn't?
Sorry, so through the chair, for the Keg Lane.
Yeah.
We've been in contact with their staff, and we don't believe it'll be an issue. But again, it's up to their council. But they've been working, like, we work with them on their development of their report. We don't see it as being a problem. But if it became a problem, lights do not need their council's approval to go forward, if it came to that.
Okay, that's good to know. And just one comment, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
We need to get this information more out to the public that is coming, because I get 2 or 3 calls a week. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? So we need to have some way of informing the public that this is what we're doing, whether there's been a delay or whatever. We need to have that out there, because it's starting to churn. I think everybody's kind of, I don't want to say content, but everybody's starting to learn to live with the dynamics of getting around in town. There's a lot of people going out Keg Lane, there's a lot of people going out Bishopsgate because that's what we asked them to do, and they're following what we're asking them to do. So I think we just need to get this information out there, whether it's our communications team or somehow to get it out there that, you know, we are still working on this. We haven't, you know, we're not stopped here. No pun intended with the stop signs, but we are still working on it. It is coming. I just think we need to get something out to the public to let them know that this is still going on. If we could, Mark, please.
Councillor Kyle.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mark. So Mark, assuming it passes here tonight and it passes with Oxford or Blandford Blenheim, whichever council needs to pass it, what's the timeline for how quickly that stop sign could be put in?
I think
so
Dave
I
would
can
like to
answer that. Through the mayor, I had a discussion late last week with Greg Demers. They're the ones installing the stop sign. We put locates in when we started discussing this about 3 weeks ago. As of last week, we haven't received them, but we're expecting them early or in the next couple days, really. They're ready. They have the poles, they have the signs, they have everything ready. So I actually talked to Greg this evening. You know, latest he's expecting the middle of next week, and we are going to coordinate with communications to make sure that people are aware, because it is a change of use of Bran Oxford Road specifically with the straight through there.
Okay. Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably more of a comment. I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade, but when we put a four-way stop on 54 at Chiefswood, they were tore out in 2 days because it didn't work. And you got a high-volume road, a Trustler Road. I know how fast that speed comes down there. I've seen it all the time. Think there's gonna be problems if you don't put lights in there sooner than later, because I'm not sure you're gonna get that traffic slowed down at a four-way stop to do it properly, because I have not forgot what happened at Chiefswood. It didn't work, and we looked like we had egg on our face when we did it. We had to take them out, and the lights went in.
Any other comments? No? Okay. So we're going to vote on these two pieces here, noting that Oxford has to agree to one of them, and we'll do the other one on our own. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. You're starting to sound like Rob Walton already. I thought it was him speaking there. You do sound like him. 12.2 is Brandon again. You're still here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just here to answer any questions about the report.
Are there any questions for Brandon, Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So I'll go right to the point. This is a lot of money for this. Do we feel that the money spent is going to be worth it in the sense of time saving, coordination, that sort of thing? Because as I say, it's, you know, by the time you add HST on there, you're pushing $300,000.
Through the mayor, yes, thank you for that question. I don't have the numbers in front of me with respect to the official plan project, but I want to, I guess, reiterate the importance of these types of projects. So we've gone through our official plan. This is kind of the next step and arguably a bit more intricate than going through that process. So we are satisfied that this is well worth the money that way. And one of the first pieces that we are doing as part of this is a very kind of financial component. So we will be looking at an analysis that looks at staff time. It looks at how many applications are coming in. It will balance that out with the types of applications we're getting in and the fees that we can apply to that. So we'll be looking at getting some of that money back through that process as well. And we do have that in mind. But with respect to this particular price point for this, we have evaluated what other municipalities have gone through of similar sizes, and it is in line with that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is it possible that, say, 6 months down the road, we have a little report to say, you know, this is what we thought, this is actually where we're at? Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, just to...
Yeah, of course, through the mayor, it was our intention to come back at various phases with this project, and one of them being that financial component. That will come early on, probably September, October, November, depending when it's done. Perfect. But towards the end of the year.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Pierce. It seems like a lot of money. But also a lot of money is OLT hearings. And I'm just wondering, given the upfront work, do you see this maybe decreasing the amount that are appealed?
Through the mayor, that is our hope. So going through an intensive process like this, there will be a large component of it that involves the development community, and we're already kind of in contact with that community, making sure that our provisions align, so to speak, and the new process that we're developing will align with their needs as well. And we do expect that to help alleviate some of the issues we have going to the OLT.
Okay, hope is not a strategy, but yes, that this is the goal, to reduce the number of OLTs, or part of the goal. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Brandon? Seeing none, all those in favor to support? Oh, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Pierce, Councillor Kyle, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, communications, we have none. Resolutions, we have none. Other business, no one said anything. Does anyone have any other business that they've thought of since we started? Probably forgot them. You probably had one and forgot it. Okay, we have no other business. Now we're going to, Councillor Kyle's going to take us in camera.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that County of Brant Council convene in camera to discuss S.239-2F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and S.239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, RPT 0170-25, Pinehurst Road OLT appeal. R. Welchman and B. Duxbury.
All those in favor? And we're going to go in camera. Councillor Chambers.
Just that the reason to go in camera is not supposed to be on the agenda. Have we not been taken to task on the fact that the reason we go in camera should be on the agenda package or on the published agenda? You can look into that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it should be.
I think it was, we're very cautious right now about what we say before we go into camera, because we need to stick to, Councillor Kyle knows.
Well, I don't know, but I will say that I did also notice that it wasn't in our printed package, it wasn't in the PDF, but it was on the HTML, like on the online one. So it was in one spot, but not the other.
No, it's an important question, Councillor Chambers, because we have gotten into some trouble lately from someone who thought we didn't do it properly. So I think, although that took a little bit of time to do, I think we need to do that. And I think when we go in camera, that's exactly all we should talk about. So it's just the way it is right now. Okay, we're back in open session, and it takes us to number 17 on the agenda, which is the bylaws, and Councillor House has those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau, that bylaws 77-25 and bylaws 85-25 to 87-25 be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaws? If you could do it again, Councillor House.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau, that bylaw 77-25 and bylaws 85-25 to 87-25 be read a second time, and all preambles and clauses be adopted.
Are there any questions to the second reading of the bylaws? All those in favor? And if you could just finish it off at the third reading, please, Councillor House.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau, that bylaw 77-25 and bylaws 85-25 to 87-25 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaws? Puts that to bed. Thank you. And our next meeting is going to be, the next meeting will be call of the chair.
See you in September.
We stand adjourned.